Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that, of course, I would talk about the fight and the potentiality of there being a mega fight overall in the future, of course, from what I hear between that and Mr. Tyson, the Gypsy King Fury, and Mr. Oleksandr Usyk. I believe his nickname, the Cat, or whatever it may be in Ukrainian. Anyways, of course, for those of you that don't know, there was a fight between Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora, the trilogy fight between them. Of course, this was not that big of a trilogy fight because Tyson Fury, of course, is levels above that of a Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora, of course, he's pretty much always been a little bit of a journeyman contender. He's always been a little bit of a rough and tough fighter, but he's never really been someone, in my opinion at least, that has ever really been truly a huge threat to championship potential. He does have a couple of decent wins in his career, like over Carlos Takam and maybe a couple of others that I'm not personally thinking of at the moment. But we all knew, for those of us that know anything about boxing, that this was not going to be a fight that mainly was competitive, and that pretty much is exactly what we got. Derek Chisora was a little bit competitive in the early rounds. I think that it's also very clear that Tyson Fury, that he pretty much was playing with Derek Chisora throughout the majority of the fight. I think that it's very clear that he really did not take Derek Chisora that seriously. Now, of course, he did not underestimate him to that great of a degree because Tyson Fury seems to take every single one of his fights seriously, at least to the point to where he's going to win. So I don't ever see Tyson Fury really ending up like what Teofimo Lopez did against George Kambosos or something like that, because it just does not appear that Tyson Fury has that type of arrogance. And don't get me wrong, certain fighters are going to have a high level of confidence that almost seems to be on the cusp of arrogance. But arrogance, in my opinion, is a little bit different from confidence, of course, because arrogant fighters, they believe overall that they can beat you no matter the situation, even sometimes if they don't take you seriously, which is why Teofimo Lopez, in my opinion, ended up losing to someone like a George Kambosos, or why other fighters overall, maybe like an Anthony Joshua, ended up losing overall to that of an Andrew Ruiz. They believe that they can beat you even when they take shortcuts, even overall when they believe that they're not putting their best foot forward. Tyson Fury, in my opinion, he doesn't really remind me as one of those fighters. So that's the good thing about Tyson Fury. But anyway, of course, for those of you that seen the result, we pretty much all expected this. Tyson Fury ended up stopping Derek Chisora, or at least the ref stopped it within 10 rounds. Now, some people may debate that this fight could have went on further. Some people would debate that this fight could have been stopped very, much more early on. I don't think that Derek Chisora was ever as badly hurt as what I've seen some of other Tyson Fury's opponents, at least as of recent, in memory, like that of a Dillian White or a Deontay Wilder. But there was no reason overall for the show to continue on. It was just going to be further punishment. I do personally agree with the stoppage. And once again, it's very clear to me that Tyson Fury, he pretty much was playing with Derek Chisora the whole entire time. And he really did not try to put him away until pretty much round six onward, maybe even a little bit later. It just is what it is. And that's kind of the fighter that Tyson Fury is. He kind of fights according to his opposition. If he's fighting someone like a Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder, he's going to put on the most dominant performance of his career, or he's going to bring out the best within himself. If he's fighting someone like, someone like overall, maybe a Derek Chisora or an Otto Wallin, someone overall who's not taken quite as seriously, it seems like he may underperform a little bit. But I thought that Tyson Fury very clearly won every single round in the fight. He very clearly outboxed Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is what is known pretty much as a brawler. But enough really of the fight review, because there really isn't much to talk about there. We pretty much all expected this. The big question is now about Tyson Fury is, where does this future go from here? Tyson Fury, of course, has been on and off the map here and there, talking about he wants to retire, and then other times saying that he doesn't want to retire. But of course, it is now planned that there is going to be a possible unification match between himself and Mr. Oleksandr Usyk. And of course, that pretty much is the fight to be made. Of course, a lot of other people may want to see that of a Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. I do think that that is a particularly interesting fight, and I think that Fury probably should go for that fight a little bit later on. But I think that the fight overall that he clearly wants to get right now, or at least that he should want to get right now, is the Oleksandr Usyk win. Now, some people overall would say, after this performance today, when it didn't look like Tyson Fury was as dominant as what he was in prior fights, do you believe that Tyson Fury can beat Oleksandr Usyk? I believe that he more than likely will beat Oleksandr Usyk, in my opinion. Now, Usyk is a very crafty fighter. He's extraordinarily intelligent. He's very highly skilled. He has great defense, great offense. But I just don't see Oleksandr Usyk, in my opinion, as a guy that, in my opinion, is going to have the size to beat someone like a Tyson Fury. Now, some people may say, well, A lot of people underestimated Oleksandr Usyk against AJ Anthony Joshua. Don't make the same mistake and do it against Tyson Fury. And I understand that Oleksandr Usyk, in my opinion, is a guy that, he can certainly take advantages, especially if you're a weaker fighter than what he is. But when it comes to Tyson Fury, what this fight would kind of remind me of is almost like the Lennox Lewis versus Evander Holyfield fight. A lot of people back in the day, back in the 90s, a lot of people thought that Evander Holyfield, that he was not going to be able to take any of the elite heavyweights, including Mike Tyson. A lot of people thought that Mike Tyson, that he was basically going to eat Evander Holyfield up. But when they both actually got into the ring a little bit with Evander Holyfield's experience and with Mike Tyson's experience, it was actually the other way around. Evander Holyfield actually embarrassed Mike Tyson in that first fight. And in the second fight, it looked a little bit closer. But Mike Tyson, of course, cannot keep his composure together. So it is what it is. Now, some, of course, believe that was due to headbutt. Some other people believe that was due to something else. But, it is what it is. Maybe a little bit of both. Who knows? But Mike Tyson, of course, we all know that during his career, he was a very mentally unstable guy. But with Evander Holyfield, when he actually stepped into the ring with guys that knew what they were doing and that could actually compete at the top tier level, unlike Mike Tyson, and a lot of people may say, why would you say that about Mike Tyson? Well, let's be real about Mike Tyson. How many big A-plus fights did he really win in his he really can't tell me, in my opinion, with fighters that were his own same size and somewhat of his own same skill set. You can't really tell me that he won a lot of the big fights in his career like that. In fact, he really didn't win any of them. He lost to Lennox Lewis and he lost to Evander Holyfield. Those are the only two A-plus fighters he ever fought in his career, and both times he got thoroughly embarrassed. It just is what it is. Both times he got thoroughly embarrassed. So that's why when certain people, they try to compare Mike Tyson and Tyson Fury, and they basically try to say, oh, who's the greater fighter? It's obvious who the greater fighter is. Mike Tyson, no offense against him, and I love Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was the fighter that got me into boxing. But at the end of the day, Mike Tyson, in my opinion, he's not a top 5 heavyweight of all time. It really is even a debate, in my opinion, if he's a top 10 heavyweight of all time. I would debate him there just because he was completely unified at one point in time and he won certain belts. But it's a great debate. It's really a debate if Mike Tyson is even over certain heavyweights like that of a Riddick Bowe. And some people may think that that's absolutely ridiculous. But at the end of the day, Riddick Bowe has a win over Evander Holyfield. I believe 2 wins over Evander Holyfield. Mike Tyson was not able to beat Evander Holyfield. Okay, it is what it is. But back to the point. When it comes down to it, the Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk fight reminds me of the Evander Holyfield versus Lennox Lewis fight. And if you remember that fight, you remember that Lennox Lewis, with his size combined with his skill set, he was able to pretty much have his will with Evander Holyfield, or he was able to clearly beat him. Now, of course, in the first fight, it was scored a draw, probably in one of the worst decisions that I've personally ever seen. But when it comes down to it, all in all, Lennox Lewis was known as a superior fighter between those two. Evander Holyfield, of course, gave it a very tough run. He was a very intelligent and very tough and thorough fighter, through his day. But at the end of the day, the size combined with the skill set, it prevailed. And oftentimes when you have two fighters that are somewhat on the same level, the bigger the size is usually going to prevail. That's just how it is. When Roberto Duran and Marvin Hagler fought, those are two fighters that had similar intelligent minds. And overall, Roberto Duran, because he was smaller, when it came down to it, he ended up being the loser in that fight. Now, some people may say, well, that's also because Marvin Hagler was better. Whatever your opinion is, my bottom line is this. Both Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury have A-plus skill sets, in my opinion. But Tyson Fury is decently bigger than Oleksandr Usyk. Decently. Now, a lot of people would also mention this with Deontay Wilder. And some people would say, well, how come you're not saying that about Deontay Wilder? Because Tyson Fury weighed about 40, 50 pounds heavier than that of Deontay Wilder. How come you're not mentioning that? The reason why that is because Deontay Wilder, with his height and reach and his power, you can still tell that Deontay Wilder is a natural heavyweight. Oleksandr Usyk is really not a natural heavyweight. Oleksandr Usyk is not a guy that is usually going to hurt you with just one solid punch. He's a guy that is going to get you overall with his slickness. He's a guy that is going to get you with certain barrages over time. And with the weight and with the power and with the skill set of Tyson Fury, I do not see, at least at the current moment in time, Oleksandr Usyk beating Tyson Fury. And some may disagree. That's okay. It is what it is. I'm just saying that I don't personally see it. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I would give Oleksandr Usyk a 30% chance at best to defeat someone like a Tyson Fury. And I don't even know if I would give him that much of a chance. Now, some people may say, well, Tyson Fury has had a little bit of problems with certain slick, smaller fighters in the past, like that of Steve Cunningham, like that of Otto Wallin, and other fighters like that. And that is a little bit, true. So who knows? Maybe Oleksandr Usyk, maybe he can give Tyson Fury troubles that we really haven't seen, at least from him in the past. But I just think that Usyk, I think that he's going to be a little bit too small. I think that Fury, whether he wants to fight on the back foot in this fight or whether he wants to fight on the front foot, I think more than likely that he's going to be able to take the fight to Oleksandr Usyk in whatever way that he's going to want to. And Oleksandr Usyk, in order to win the fight, in my opinion, against Tyson Fury, he's going to have to overwhelm him. There's really only one way, in my opinion, that Usyk can beat Tyson Fury, and that is trying to overwhelm him up against the ropes and hoping that overall the size and overall the smaller reach, the fact that maybe if he can get on the inside, maybe that will overwhelm Tyson Fury, and that overall that he'll have enough power and enough smarts and enough agility overall to outmaneuver Tyson Fury if he's able to do that. But Tyson Fury has a great chin. He establishes distance extraordinarily well, and he has enough power overall to hurt anyone, in my opinion, in the heavyweight division. I just don't see, in my opinion, how Oleksandr Usyk is going to beat Tyson Fury. It just is what it is. It's whatever, because Usyk is a natural cruiserweight. Once again, certain people may say, well, what about Deontay Wilder? Wilder is still a guy that is 6'7" with an 80-something inch reach, very comparable to the physical dimensions of Tyson Fury, and of course, overall has that natural one-shot knockout power. So when it comes down to it, Deontay is usually overall going to have a bigger chance, at least usually overall against those larger heavyweights, at least at times, because he's more of a natural heavyweight. Oleksandr Usyk really isn't. Now, of course, Usyk is decently more skilled than what Deontay Wilder is. But Joe Frazier and other certain heavyweights that I've seen, I would also say that, debatably, that they're more skilled overall than what a George Foreman was. But that didn't always mean anything because George Foreman was at least skilled enough, and on top of that, with the power and the size, there was just not much that they could do. So it's going to be very particularly interesting to see what ends up occurring in this fight. And then, of course, the other fight that Tyson Fury kind of mentioned was Joe Joyce. And that is really the fighter, in my opinion, that when you talk about the biggest threat potentially to Tyson Fury, Joe Joyce might be potentially the biggest threat to Tyson Fury, in my opinion. It's not Deontay Wilder. It's not Anthony Joshua. I don't even think, in my opinion, that it's Oleksandr Usyk. I think that it may be Joe Joyce, and some people may disagree. Now, I think that I would more than likely bet Tyson Fury to outbox that of a Joe Joyce over a series of 12 rounds, possibly even stop him, but I think I would go with a unanimous decision. But Joe Joyce, he may not necessarily look like a guy that has the greatest of fundamentals, but when you actually take a look at him, he's a little bit better defensively than what you may think. He actually doesn't have the worst feet that I've ever seen. They're a little bit slow, but his footwork does not come across to me as clunky. He's just a guy that has a little bit of clunky movement. Sometimes he's a little bit robotic with his head movement, and sometimes he moves a little bit slow. If Fury, of course, can use his speed advantage and his reach advantage to his ability, which more than likely he would against Joe Joyce, more than likely I predict that fight going out with a 12-round, unanimous decision or majority decision. But Joe Joyce is extraordinarily powerful. He's very powerful. He's a smart fighter. He's a little bit better defensively than what most people give him credit for. And overall, he at least moves sometimes when he needs to. I would still bet on Fury to beat Joe Joyce by decision, but I actually believe that Joe Joyce is the biggest threat to Tyson Fury. If Tyson Fury is able to beat Oleksandr Usyk and Joe Joyce, in my opinion, there's just really nothing else for him to prove. There's really nothing else left for him to prove because I don't see another fighter, in my opinion, that is really going to give him any problems. I don't think that Dillian White is ever going to be able to beat him. I don't think that Joseph Parker is ever going to be able to beat him. I don't think Luis Ortiz or Frank Sanchez, I don't think that those fighters are ever going to beat him. I don't think overall that Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, is ever going to beat him. But maybe that fight still might be viable just because of the popularity and the fact that they're both British fighters. And that's a fight that should have happened a while ago, but it never did. Maybe that fight's viable. But Tyson Fury really only needs 3 fights left in his career, in my opinion. That is, once again, the Oleksandr Usyk fight, the Anthony Joshua fight, and the Joe Joyce fight. Now, will those 3 fights happen? We'll see. But in my opinion, once again, with those 3 fights, he'll pretty much prove whatever he needed to prove throughout his career. I don't see another fighter that I see, all in all, in my opinion, that is really going to be a major threat to him. Now, of course, there is that new American kid, I believe Jared Anderson, or whatever the hell his name is, who's very powerful. And on top of that, when it comes down to he's very decently talented. But I think at the moment that he's just a little bit too inexperienced. And I think by the time that Jared Anderson, that he really comes in the title contention, I think more than likely that Tyson Fury, that his career is going to be over, or that more than likely he's going to ride off into the sunset, which I don't really have a problem with. So we'll see overall what ends up happening. But like I said, Tyson Fury, his career more than likely within these next couple of years is going to come to an end because I don't think that Tyson Fury really sees a lot of clear competition out there for him. And if Tyson Fury takes every fight seriously, he more than likely is going to end up undefeated in his career. Because I just really don't see a fighter that, in my opinion, can really compete with the size combined with the skill set of a Tyson Fury. He's just too smart. He's too intelligent. He's too good. Overall, he has that size. Overall, when it comes down to it. And on top of that, he's a great defensive and a great offensive fighter. He is a great multi-dimensional fighter. He can pretty much do anything that he needs to do. He can do anything that the coach asks him to do. And that's why he's able to put on impressive performances like this, even when it doesn't look like that he's going at full capacity. But I just thought that I would talk about that. So it's going to be very particularly interesting. But anyways, that's really about it for today. I just thought that I would talk about that. Thank you all so much for watching. And I'll see you all later. And we'll see what happens with Mr. Tyson Fury and what he plans to do next. But very, very potentially excited to see an Oleksandr Usyk match. And let me state this. If Tyson Fury is able to beat the likes of Oleksandr Usyk, if he's able to also beat the likes of a Joe Joyce and an Anthony Joshua, if he's able to beat those three fighters, he will have a great debate, in my opinion, as the greatest heavyweight of all time. And some people may say that, that's illogical. Some people may say that you're going a little bit too far with that. But really, when we take a look at the all-time great, heavyweight champions, certain people may say that Fury has the size advantage and that, he doesn't have the resume. But Tyson Fury, once again, has proved himself to be, in my opinion, already a top 5 heavyweight of all time. He's beaten Deontay Wilder. He's beaten Vladimir Klitschko. He's beaten Dillian White. He's beaten a couple of other ones that maybe I'm not mentioning. How many A-grade wins do a lot of the all-time great heavyweight champions really have? I mean, you're talking about, Rocky Marciano. You're talking about certain big wins like Joe Louis when he was a little bit older. You're talking about a Jersey Joe Walcott. And I believe that one cruiserweight fighter, I can't remember the man's name, maybe Archie Manning or something like that. I can't necessarily remember the long-reigning champion that Rocky Marciano knocked out when he was 40-something years old, but still very competitive. You're also talking about Muhammad Ali, who, of course, had great wins over Floyd Patterson, Sonny Liston, George Foreman, when it came down to it, and Joe Frazier. So that's about 4 or 5 big wins right there. Tyson Fury already has at least 2 major A-grade wins in his career over Klitschko and Wilder, and another one over Dillian White, who's probably about an A- fighter in that division. So how much really does Tyson Fury really need to prove? It just is what it is. But anyways, that's really about it for today. I just thought that I would talk about that. That it would be very interesting. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.